intelligence, as it turns out, is a scalable product. There's extremely high intelligence products, tokens that are used for specialized things. People be willing to pay, the idea that somebody's willing to pay $1,000 per million tokens is just around the corner. It's not if, it's only when. And so now we're seeing that the commodity that this factory makes is actually valuable and is revenue generating and profit generating. Now the question is, how many of these factories does the world need? How many tokens does the world need? And how much is society willing to pay for these tokens? And what would happen to the world's economy if the productivity were to improve so substantially? What would happen? Are we going to discover new drugs, new products, new services? And so when you take these things in combination, I am absolutely certain that the world's GDP is going to accelerate in growth. I'm absolutely certain the percentage of that GDP that will be used for computation will be 100 times more than the past, because it's no longer a storage unit, it's a product generation unit. And so when you look at it in that context, and then you back into what does NVIDIA do, and how much of that new economics, new industry would we have the benefit to address, I think we're going to be a lot bigger. And then the rest of it, to me, is is it possible for NVIDIA to be a $3 trillion revenues company in the near future? The answer is, of course, yes. And the reason for that is because it's not limited by any physical limits. There's nothing that I see that says, $3 trillion is not possible. And as it turns out, NVIDIA's supply chain the burden is shared by 200 companies. And the fact that we scale out on the backs with the partnership of this ecosystem, the question is, do we have the energy to do so? And surely we will have the energy to do so. And so all of these things combined, that number is just a number, And I still remember NVIDIA was the first time we crossed $1 billion. I was reminded of a CEO who told me, Jensen, it's theoretically impossible for a fabless semiconductor company to exceed $1 billion. And I won't bore you with why, but of course it's illogical, and there's a lot of evidence we're not. And then somebody told me, Jensen, you'll never be more than $25 billion because of some other company. Somebody told me that you'll never be, because, and then so those aren't first principle reason thinking. And the simple way to think about that is, what is it that we make, and how large is the opportunity that we can create? Now, NVIDIA is not in the market share business. Almost everything that I just talked about don't exist. Mm-hmm. That's the part that's hard. If NVIDIA was a $10 billion company trying to take NVIDIA's share, then it's easy to see for shareholders that, oh yeah, if they could just take 10% share, they could be this much larger. But it's hard for people to imagine how large we could be, because there's nobody I could take share from, And so I think that's one of the challenges for the world is the imagination of the future. But I got plenty of time, and I'll keep reasoning about it, and I'll keep talking about it, and every single GTC will become more and more real, and then more and more people will talk about it. And one of these days, we'll get there. But I'm 100% we'll get there.